Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it is your favorite weekend show, Weekend Deal. Now, the home rental space in Nigeria involves an interplay of social, cultural, and economic factors that can be challenging to both the landlord and the tenants. To tell us more is NTA TVE, and they'll be taking a look at skyrocketing rents in Nigeria.
Everyone needs a roof over their head, but with the skyrocketing of house rent in Nigeria recently, one wonders if this vital need can be achieved.
The frequent increase in rent, it's very alarming right now. You see that some people go as far as 50%. Like for instance, as me, I paid 100,000. So will just come up and had 50,000, so you make it around 50,000. You know, so it's been very, very alarming.
There's where I check a two-bedroom flat. They are telling me 1.8 million, which my friend, as from 3 years back, my friend rents house of a three-bedroom flat, 1.2 million. So 600 on top of what we are rent, which is two-bedroom flat and three-bedroom flat. It's much now.
The cost of house rent in Nigeria has been rising at an alarming rate, leaving many residents struggling to make ends meet. The situation is particularly alarming for average salary earners, civil servants, and small business owners who are finding it tough to cope with the rising living expenses. High rent increases are pricing out most Nigerians, including the middle class.
Or in some people's cases, you notice that the standard of living actually dropped. Somebody that is paying for maybe three-bedroom flat initially will be forced because of the rent to move to maybe a room self-contained, or maybe a mini flat, which is like a room and a parlor. And a family of 6 that you expect that in a 3-bedroom will have been appropriate, for privacy, especially for the parents. It's everybody has to cluster themselves into an accommodation that is not befitting.
Imagine maybe they will be saying, okay, let's say for example, they can be saying an apartment is maybe a room and parlor sale, they can be saying 750. When they hatch the agreement and commission with maybe damages, the money will be like 150% of the actual money, which is per year. So it's too exorbitant.
As a result, numerous families are being pushed to the outskirts, incurring additional expenses for transportation, while also facing heightened stress and emotional distress. Consequently, some families have resorted to living apart, with the income earner staying close to work and the dependents remaining in other areas.
This TB Joshua site. So my brother rotated there due to he cannot pay the house rent again here. So they are paying 3-bedroom flat there, 350. So why they have increased their own here, 1.8 million. So they call me to come there. The problem is that my market of 18, I'm selling a year, but before I transfer there to pound here in a day, it's up to 3.5. Pound times month times year. So I don't think I can make it.
The reason is this. When you go to the market, when I built my house, a bag of cement is 500 naira. That was 2014, 2013, 2006. It's still cheap. Like in 2006, a bag of cement is 500 naira. Now, a bag of cement is 10,000 plus. Now, only a tap is about 500 naira then. Now, a tap is one tap, not original one. It's 3,000 naira. Original one is 10,000 naira. When you call a plumber to come and fix a tap, you know how much he's going to charge you? He's going to charge you 5,000 to fix a tap for you. So when you gather all these things in a house where you get about 8 flats, you change about let's say 24 taps. You know how much it will be. And if a plumber charge you, we charge you like crazy,
In all, shelter is a basic necessity. If this issue isn't addressed urgently, many Nigerians will continue to struggle with the harsh reality of skyrocketing rents.
It's great to have you keep our company today on Weekend Deal as we talk about something that impacts us at different times in our lives. One thing for sure, a landlord was once a tenant, and hopefully all the tenants today will be landlords tomorrow. But what role do agents play? That's the meeting matter today as we focus on the special dynamics between landlords and tenants and the role of those agents. But we want to make this discourse very sweet, and that's why the music department of the Nigerian Navy Band, they are here to enrich our discourse, and after the perform we'll begin to introduce our guests. The Nigerian Navy Band, please take it away.
goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The Nigerian Navy Band. That was amazing. Me, I like my country. I like the land and people. Everything he did for Nigeria. Make we join hands to make Nigeria better. Oh, beautiful memories there. Thank you so much. That was amazing. It is time for us to start our conversation, and our guests are here. Well, it is my honor to introduce Honorable Barrister Ephraim Kegnan Chiho. He is a legal practitioner. Let's see his profile.
Welcome to Weekend Deal, Barrister. It's great to have you join us today as we talk about landlord and tenants and the unique dynamics that govern that relationship. Well, Barrister will not be here alone, okay? We also have somebody of high repute who also influence our discourse and give us clarity in some gray areas. We made great and welcome estate surveyor and valuer in the person of Obiajulu and Neoke.
Good morning.
You're welcome to Weekend Deal. Our conversation starts right now. Like Thelma said, when she opened, it's either you're a tenant or you're a landlord. So almost all of us fall into these categories. As a tenant looking for a peaceful, smooth tenancy, what should you look out for?
Good morning. Well, when you talk of landlord, tenants, you also talk of property.
Yes.
Because you may have residential property, commercial property, industrial property, agricultural property. Whatever a tenant is looking out for, he's looking out for a place where you have a quiet enjoyment. You will let a property and enjoy the place he lets. The landlord wants a tenant that will take off his property, and he enjoys the income that comes from investment in that property.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you very much, ESV. Honorable Barrister, it's great of you to join us today. When we hear about barrister, many of us pray not to ever have cause to go to court, especially when it has to do with where we live. It can be quite uncomfortable, one would assume. But let's talk about the importance of tenancy agreements. Honorable Barrister, tell us, how vital is it to the peace and unity and growth and development of the relationship between the landlord and the tenant?
Thank you very much. You know, an agreement simply means meetings of the mind. In one of the legal parlance, we call it consensus ad idem. You know, when parties, by parties I mean when the landlord and the tenant come together, I want to lease or rent my property to you, and then you want to take my property from me, then there should be guidelines, there should be, you know, terms and conditions. Now, an agreement is very essential for the peaceful coexistence of both the landlord and the tenant, even though there are implied terms and conditions, wherein if there is no agreement, then the law takes course. For example, now, when you come to Abuja, where we are here, properties are being governed by Recoveries of Premises Act. So where there is no agreement between the tenant and the landlord, then recourse has to be taken to the Recovery of Premises Act, which at that point, no one has the monopoly of options again. It is what the law says that is obtainable. So to a very large extent, an agreement could reduce terms which were not contemplated by the law, or when parties decide to understand themselves, they could also reduce that into writing. And as at that point, the law is no longer allowed to tinker with that. So it is very important that you have an agreement.
Okay. So he says it's very important that you have an agreement. And I want the estate surveyors are the businessmen of the building team, if you ask me, even but the ones that oversee properties. How important is it for a tenant to properly read the agreement? Or do Nigerians actually read this agreement, or we just put pen to paper?
Well, in our own case, as custodians of property, in terms of management, when we are engaging a tenant to take up a property, we get involved with our lawyer who drafts the agreement, which will make it possible that the tenant will come in, go through the agreement. If you wish to engage another lawyer to advise him or her, it goes that we insist because we know the importance of that agreement. And it is critical. It's important that any tenant that is desiring to let a house should go and through the agreement and understand this before executing that agreement.
So it's very important that we read
very important.
Agreement.
Not only reading it, but understanding each clause.
Do Nigerians actually read this? Most Nigerians, in your experience as an estate surveyor, do Nigerians care? Do we read this agreement?
Well, as a professional estate surveyor and valuer, we make sure that anybody coming to let us read it. But if you decide to patronize a quack, he may not advise you on that importance. So most times when they engage quacks, they don't bother to go through or they don't even bother to enter into any agreement, and they'll go.
Thank you very much, ESV of Biajulu. This lawyer here, sometimes, many people see, especially the tenants, they see taking up a lawyer as, there's always a trepidation, but there are times where it does become necessary. But all of us pray to avoid it. Perhaps you've had cases of a landlord and tenant disagreement that has led to a visit to the court. What is the usual scenario?
Well, the usual scenario plays out this way. Most landlords, I would say they are vicious. But they are being vicious not because they want to be so, because most tenants have made them to become vicious. But it all boils down to not having a concrete agreement. You see, when a tenant wants to take up a property, they always want to cut corners. I am supposed to pay this lawyer 10% of the amount I am paying for this property. I could, as a matter of fact, just waive and get into the properties. Whereas you don't even understand the terms and conditions behind your lease or rent. So when it gets to the point of going to the court, that is when you now call a lawyer to come and work magic. And at that point, no lawyer can work magic. If the law is not on your part as at then you face it the way you see it. So I always advise that even if the country is a bit the way it is, but we should also understand that these are things that we must do to make it working round.
Okay, so I won't ask you a question, but I just want to ask Barrister Ephraim a question. The law, I hear people say that the law in Nigeria, the rental laws in Nigeria, when you go to court, that the laws favor the tenants more than the landlords. Is it true? People say that a lot.
Categorically, I will agree with you, and there is a reason to that. The landlord owns the house. It simply means that whichever way the house returns to him, but if you unjustly, if you unlawfully remove a tenant from a house, that tenant might not have an alternative accommodation. So the law gives a longer rope to the tenant to enable that tenant source for alternative accommodation. That's the reason why we have quick notices. You must notify the tenant that you want to use this property, because there are reasons why a landlord could recover his property from the tenant. So the law mandates the landlord that you must determine your tenancy by a quick notice. And the length, duration of that notice depends on the kind of tenancy you have or what you have agreed ab initio.
But what's the maximum?
Now, when we go by the Recovery of Premises Act, we have yearly tenancy. We have quarterly tenancy, that is 4 months. We have monthly tenancy, and then we have weekly tenancy. Now, where there is no agreement between parties, obviously we're going to return back to what the Recovery of Premises Act says. At that point, for a 1 year tenancy, the tenant is entitled to 6 months quick notice.
Okay.
Yes. Then for quarterly tenancy, 3 months. For monthly tenancy, 1 month. For weekly, 1 week. And then after which, the tenant is still entitled to be served another notice called 7 days owner's intention for the landlord to recover his or her property.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very important, and it's very important that we read our tenancy agreement before you put pen to paper, because if you do not, you might be roping yourself in for some consequences. Now we hear of estate agents. Sometimes people say that they are the complexity in the dynamics of that relationship we call tenant-landlord relationship. NT Kaduna will be telling us more.
Migration from rural to urban settlements have made the demand for accommodation in urban areas very high. In Kaduna today, finding a decent house to rent can feel like an adventure, one filled with hope, frustration, and sometimes problems. They are called agents, meaning the middlemen who connect house seekers to landlords. How well are they doing their jobs?
My experience was that you pay money to an agent, and the landlord, the money will not get to the landlord for a very long time. I've experienced that. The landlord came to me. I said, no, I paid long ago. You know, I had to show him evidence when I paid the money, you know. And the agent refused to give the money until the landlord had to go back to the agent. And it took a while before he was able to get his money.
The last place I lived, the agent told us that there's actually no borehole in the building, but once we pay our rent, that they will just immediately get a borehole for us, a working borehole. So we paid our rent. We lived there for 1 month, no borehole. 2 months, no borehole. I called on to the agents. He said that they are planning on it. What we do now is we should just pay for 2 years rent. And we talked to ourselves, the people living in the house. We are about 4 flats, and we raised the money for 2 years. The next thing we saw was these manual borehole people, these people that use hand drill. They kept drilling and drilling, water did not come out, and that was how they left. And I had to threaten to go to court before they were able to refund me my 1 year rent. And I think that was a very bad experience for me.
Yet, not all agents are dubious. There are professionals who understand that trust is the foundation of their work.
Every profession has its ethics. Now, you have a lot of people who sit under trees, who say they are agents. You have your neighbor at home who tells you he's an agent, he does not have an office. So most times when they are desirous of this service, they just meet the next available person. No. There are agents, there are property managers who have offices. Like now you're in my office. You understand? You come to the office, you make your intention known. You say, I need to rent a 2-bedroom facility, or I need to buy a property. Now, if you want to rent, one of the things I will ask you, what is your budget? What is your range? What are the features you're looking for? Now, when you give me this feature, when you give me this range, I will look in my list of available vacancies, which fits your specification, which fits your budget. Those are the ones I will ask my staff to take you to, or I will take you to. So, but we have a scenario where people don't go to professionals. They just go to anybody. You don't know his office. You know, most times when you meet a quack, you know he's a quack. But people feel that when they come to registered agents, when they come to people who have offices, they pay more. That's what they feel. Because sometimes when in a bid to cut corners, you cut yourself.
Stories like this are common. Desperate for accommodation, many Nigerians fall prey to unprofessional agents who take advantage of the house crisis. Some agents inflate rent rates, collect multiple inspection fee, called takalami in the Hausa language, often disappear after collecting payment, leaving house seekers stranded.
Generally speaking, housing matters are contractual. It's a contract between the landlord and the tenant. However, when you have housing agents, the agent is supposed to be like, just like you rightly said, acting on behalf of the landlord. But for now, the only redress available to a tenant who feels offended is first and foremost to seek the protection by the law courts that this wrong or that wrong has been meted to me. That if you notice, I'm not speaking in specific terms now, okay? But when you feel you have been wronged, the only option for you is to go to the court under the landlord and tenant law to seek redress for whatever fault you think the agent has committed. But again, let me say this, because the agent is acting on behalf of the principal, there are times the landlord will be held liable.
A good agent must be transparent, issue receipts for every transaction and ensure both parties understand the terms. By doing that, we build a lasting solution.
Interesting, isn't it? You know, when we're talking behind the scene, we espouse that it is easy to talk about landlord and tenant agreement, but hardly do we hear about the agreement or the laws that govern, direct, and reorientate our agents. But there's just, especially from Lagos State, we'll talk more about that, but that'll be after NAV Band nourishes our discourse further. NAV Band, take it away.
beautiful. The Nigerian Navy Band, that was beautiful. Well done. I want to appreciate, there's a lot of people behind this amazing performance. We want to appreciate the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Okechukwu Ogala. Sir, thank you so much. Commander of the Naval Base Abuja, Commodore Sheyi Oladipo. Sir, thank you so much. Selma?
Oh, that's great patience. You know, earlier on, I said the NAF band. Oh, my most sincere apologies. You know, I was at an event recently where the NAF band performed.
Okay.
I do know this is the Nigerian Navy, and they are doing amazingly well.
Amazing.
They are nourishing our discourse so nicely. Director of Music, Navy Captain S.B. Ubandoma, we celebrate you. Thank you so much. Director of Information, Commodore Adams Aliu, you helped to facilitate the appearance today and the performance of the Nigerian Navy Band. We thank you very warmly. And the band officer, Lieutenant Commander Olaife Olaya. He's the one conducting the band. And you see the love and the
smile.
Wow. Oh, give it up. Kudos.
Well done. Well done. Okay, your messages are coming in. Let me quickly take one. Say, good morning, Weekend Deal. I'm Abdul, a tenant from Prince and Princesses Estate, Abuja. We are 3 tenants residing with the landlady. We occupy 7 con each. We pay service charges higher than the landlady, living in the 3-bedroom bungalow. We know, but we cannot talk. Please advise us what we should do. That is the question. There are 3 all living together with the landlady. They live in small self-cons and the landlady lives in the bungalow. Yet, they pay the higher fee as far as the service fee is concerned. Somebody said this is beautiful and amazing. Thank you. Then I'll take this one before we continue our conversation. Good morning to you all, please. To be specific, my landlord brought a lawyer to increase my rent, but I know I now know my landlord just used lawyer to increase our rent. What should I do? Please, I need advice. So these are the 2 questions. Maybe Barrister Efren should take one on the one the lawyer just came and increased the house rent. He wants to know what to do. And then you take the second one about the service charge. So, Barrister Efren, sir.
Thank you very much. On the issue of increment of rent, the essence is to avail the tenant multiple times to prepare for that. And it is often advised that a tenant should have at least a year interval for you to choose whether I will go by this new increment or I will vacate your property for you. So it depends on the duration of the notice given by the lawyer. However, if you're not comfortable with that, you could also approach the court for a review. You have been empowered to do that. But you see, when you check the cost of litigation, the cost of getting a lawyer, the amount you pay the lawyer, and how long it will drag, so most tenants have no choice than to go by the increment. And then again, if you check, most tenancy relationships, in the agreement executed by both parties, there is a clause for rent increment. And if you want to increase the rent without the tenant's consent, you must call the tenant together and explain reasons why this should be. Once it is not captured in the agreement when to increase rent and the percentage to which the rent will be increased, you need to call the tenant for a meeting for that to happen. And if that doesn't happen, the tenant has all it takes to go and challenge that. But like I said, when you juxtapose the cost of litigation, then most people just let it go.
Or move out, as the case may be.
But I wanted, before ESV, let me ask you something. You said sometimes they have no option but to go to the court. In our culture, court is not the first option. Deliberations can oftentimes precede that. What is the role of deliberation? Because landlord is accessible, tenant too is accessible. At what point do you say I'm heading to the court?
At the point when all talks have heated dead rocks. At the point when the landlord no longer wants to listen, the tenant also feels the landlord will not listen. At that point, the tenant needs to head to court. Most of the times, the landlord also heads to court. But like I said, or like I've been saying, it's very important for you to reduce everything in writing. It guides and protects the tenant and the landlord as well.
Okay.
Well, in addition to what the barrister has said, arbitrary rental increment is not good. But before you could increase your rent, it is important that you serve a sufficient notice to the tenant. So the tenant will know whether he or she is prepared to go along with the increment or not. If he or she is not, she has the right to look for alternative accommodation. And they know rental increments doesn't just come like that. It's over time, inflation effects and other things. So but the important thing is that the landlord and the tenants should have a common understanding going forward. Yes.
Okay. So the issue of a service charge, this person said there are 3 living in a self-con, and the landlady herself is living in the bungalow, and she pays less of the service charge than them, and they don't know what to do. This person say he needs advice.
Well, service charge administration in property management, number one is that you have to ascertain the services, the facilities being provided that calls for the payment of that services. So these facilities supposed to be serviced. That's what we call service charge. So the charge for servicing that facility has to be determined. You may have in a premises where you have a borehole, in a premises where you have a generator for the common use of the tenants, in a premises where you have uniform security personnel, cleaning and other things, and other services provided. You need to articulate the cost, probably per annum, of that service you are providing, and share it and prioritize it as the case may be. Somebody that is living in a one-room self-contained may not be generating as much waste to be disposed as somebody that's living in a 3-bedroom bungalow. So it may not be equitable for you to say that the person in the one-room self-contained will pay higher in terms of the service charge more than the person living in a 3-bedroom bungalow with families. So is the person managing the property should take that into consideration, or even the landlord take that into consideration and prorata according to the...
So do you advise him to have conversation? Who should he have conversation with? Now, this guy who sent us a message.
No, he should get the person managing the property, the attention of the person managing the property, and register his own... or if there's nobody managing the property, then we should approach the landlord and, air their view over that.
Air their view politely.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, ESV, because always when we are polite and courteous, we make inroad rather than sometimes heading to the courts. I think everybody has a listening ear. But at different times, that landlord has been a tenant. He has even begun as an agent, and then he progressed and moved upward until he was able to get his own building or number of buildings, as the case may be. We're talking about the dynamics, very special and unique between the tenant and the landlord, especially with regard to home rentals. And that's how we move now to Cross River State, where NTA Calabar has been talking about middleman. First you have the agents, and then you have middleman. Could they play the same role? I know they are not the same, but can they do the same thing? Can they be there? But NTA Calabar, please tell us more.
It's you that brought me. Yes, that brought me. Yes, it's you that brought our money. So we cannot wait till you put the tenant in your house. We need our money. That's...
Middlemen exploit information and increases the cost of rent, leading to unfair practices, which creates confusion and, in too many cases, causes heartbreak that has led many to frustration, injury, or death.
From my own experience, go looking for an apartment to stay instead of them collecting 1 year rent. Some will go as far as telling you to pay 2 years so that the agent can get good amount of money in returns at the end of the day. We should try as much as possible to discourage middlemen in terms of property management.
So I was looking for accommodation, and one of my classmates connected me with this agent. When I meet this agent, he told me that his percentage is 10. But so I thought both the transport would be in the 10%, but I did not know. When we started first, the houses he was showing me was not pleasant to me. I don't think he was a real agent. Each house he would take me to, I'll pay his transport of 3,000 and then buy food in the process. And at the end, I discovered that he was not the real agent.
This is one of the many stories. It has become a pattern as middlemen create inefficiencies such as delays or miscommunication. Also charge viewing fee, connection fee, transportation, or worse, key money for properties. Many fall prey to their desperation looking for a roof over their heads.
A landlord may have his house empty for years without knowing how to get a tenant for it. A seller of property may keep his house without knowing how to reach out to the market. But agency, they have their way of communicating. It's a chain business. It's networking. They network among themselves to make sure this transaction goes smoothly. And with agency, there is that thin line of eliminating excessive fraud, because what they do is they investigate a property before they put it into market.
This is the cause of many hands in the rental pot. There are better ways to mitigate challenges. Chaos. Connect directly with the landlords or adopting the help of digital platforms and rental apps to verify agents will help mitigate the risks associated with middlemen.
Because of their own personal interests, they tend to take the price up just because of the percentage, the agency fee they want to collect. Most times we don't have access to the owner of the houses, so we are forced to go by the agent's terms. The agents should just try to be human, because the economy is biting everybody. We know that that's where they survive, but they should try also to put themselves in our shoes. That even if it's them that these houses are going to be given to them to take, will they just pay that agency fee like that? So they should try to, reason with tenants and not inflate the rent so that we can have a good place to live.
Together, we can restore fairness and dignity to the housing process with informed decisions about how to restructure their transactions and relationships. No more gatekeepers, no more ghosts, just homes. Find the right way.
Agents in the housing subsector space, how can we coordinate them in such a way that they will do the right thing? I'm happy that Estate Surveyor is here. They are boys, so he's going to be speaking to that shortly. But it is time for us for the Navy band to give us some music.
That's
wow.
amazing.
That's
A
all I
big
can
thank
say.
you to them. That was great. Well done to the Nigerian Navy band. I know that behind the scene or in front of the scene, on the scene, we were here moving.
Yeah.
Like they often say in local parlance, patience, nothing do our shoulder.
Nothing do us, so we're moving.
Well, well done there. There was a question that was waiting for ESV. But before then, we had also talked about agents, that there's laws and writings and understanding, written, verbal, that's guiding tenant and landlord. But there's hardly any we know about that governs, guides, and directs the agents. So perhaps we'll speak to that, maybe the barrister first, and then we'll have the ESV speak to what Patience said earlier. You were talking about Lagos State. They started something for the agents. There's a law. They go to jail when they steal our money, like take rent from 7 people for one house.
Sadly, that's the sad truth. The truth is that there is no regulation for agents. So they do as it pleases them. However, the tenants will soon breathe when it comes to Lagos State government. Let me borrow our president's slogan, let the poor breathe. So the tenants in Lagos will soon breathe. Because in the 2025 bill for Lagos State Tenancy and Recovery of Premises Law, which is in the pipeline, a clause, or rather a section, has been imputed to cover and regulate agency in Lagos State. They have been forbidden to take a fee beyond 5% off the amount you are paying us rent. They've also been forbidden, when it eventually passed to law, from collecting rent from different tenants. You take a rent from a tenant at a time. If it doesn't work, you return it before you move to another. So the era of collecting monies from more than 10 persons, then absconding with it will not actually kick this time around. And then when you want to be an agent, you must first and foremost register with an agency body. I think the surveyor body, I'm not too sure, but you must register with them, because you should have the requisite training to embark on such. Now, there are penalties to that effect. If you do any of the above mentioned, from 3 months jail term or 2 years even jail term and ₦1 million fine, at times both comes together. So to a large extent, this will help tenants a lot, and it will also remove landlords from the mess these agents put them through. So it's not only on the side of the tenant, the landlord also suffers it, because it is assumed that that agent is an agent of that landlord. So the landlord should be liable or vicariously liable for the deeds or misdeeds of that agent. So this law has come. When it comes eventually, it will save both the tenant and the landlord.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. The issue of agents, we can keep going on and on. I know you have a lot to say about it, because you people interface even more with the agents. But we've been asked to go on a break. So hold your thoughts. We'll be asked to go on a break. When we come back, he will react to the issue of agents and how they're going to streamline their activities. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back. I'll take some of your messages before the ESV reacts to some of the things we said here. Somebody said, is it right for my landlord to issue quick notice 6 months before the expiration of my rent, and I'm expected to leave the house 6 months before the expiration of his rent? NTA has been wonderful in this program. Eloy and Thelma are like twin sisters. The federal government said the food prices have dropped, possibly due to the new harvest season, while the prices of building material and toiletries keep going up high. How does this scenario buttress the recent World Bank that our president said about economic reforms? We just hope things get better. This is from Dr. John Aldu Makordi. And then one says, good morning, Weekend Drew. The increase of rent by house owners is because the government has failed in regulating the sector. The issue of market forces play is not justifiable. Agreed, the prices of building materials has hit the roof, but a situation where a house built more than 20 years ago attracts the same amount with houses built recently is ridiculous. Recently, the Cross River State House of Assembly deliberated on banning house agents because of their role in these increases. John Angels, Eket, Akwa Ibom State. Thank you so much, John Angels. Good morning. I operate a business center in Makadi. I renewed my rent in August 2005, valid till August 2026. On the 30th of September, my landlord said the house was sold and asked us to vacate before the 1st of November. He opted to return and has returned my rent. Shockingly, on the 17th of October, they blocked my shop with blocks. No access at all. Please, I need your advice. Please react to this and some other things. You, ESV.
Well, we start from the person that talked about what's it now? Is that the increment?
Yeah, the increment of rent. Yeah. Why are we having the increments everywhere? I got one too. Why are landlords increasing? What's the problem? What is the challenge?
Well, every tenant should not expect that when he pays rent for the first year or first month or first week, that is going to be static.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be static.
How long should a tenant stay in a house before you expect an increase?
It depends on the agreement you have with the landlord. One thing people have to understand is that property is like an investment. A landlord is an investor in real estate sector. He built his house, he expects to return in that house. But everything has to do with moderation. You see, when you build a house, it takes not less than 20 years up to recoup your investment there. So, and some landlord may have the capital outlay as an equity. They may go to the bank to raise their capital to build the house, and they're supposed to be paying back. So if someone will not just say that a landlord built a house for the past 20, 50 years and is still asking for rent. No, but what you have to understand is that house that was built 20 years ago, there what is called cost overrun in use. You know, as the house gets older, it requires more money to do what? To restore, to renovate, and to repair. You know, if you're a tenant and the landlord said that my house is leaking, the landlord had the obligation to come and repair the leaking roof. There could also be a situation where the roof, because of aging, needs to be totally changed, you know, so that it can sustain the shelter it's supposed to provide. So inflation is an effect in this situation. The material you bought when you built the house, if you want to change a sheet in the roof, for instance, it can never be the same in the next 10, 20 years. So there is need for rent to be reviewed. But in reviewing this rent, it doesn't have to be every year. You know, some tenants may stay in 2-3 years before their rents are reviewed. But you can understand the issue of what they call a Shylock landlord.
Well, quickly, before I let you go, what are the major responsibilities of the tenant and the rights of what should I repair in my house if something goes wrong? And what should a landlord repair? What are the responsibilities? Let's say there's a door handle that is broken. Who should repair it? Let's say another. Yeah, what?
Well, the landlord, majorly, the obligation is on the structure.
The structure?
Structure.
Okay.
The main structure. The landlord will ensure that the property is airtight.
Okay.
The rain does not affect you. Now, if you have any structural problem, the landlord comes in there. But internally, there are uses. There are repairs that come as a result of uses. There's also wear and tear. If you have a tenant in your house and he doesn't mind how he handles the ironmongery, I mean the lock, the children draws the door up and down, throws it anyhow, and the lock spoils. You don't expect the landlord to come and repair it for you. If you go to the convenience and you don't know how to apply the flushing system and you use all your muscles to spoil this, you don't expect the landlord to come and repair it for you. But if, for instance, there is a storm effect and the roof sheet is blown out, you get the attention of the landlord, he will come and repair his house. If there is a crack, for instance, in the wall, which is a major engineering issue, you call the landlord, he come and repair his house.
Okay, thank you very much, ESV. I like that thing, ESV. Wow, the acronym, very interesting. And there's so much knowledge and detail. And see how he's unveiling it. Thank you so much, ESV Obiajulu. We're going to Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Wow. Now, this is the crux of the matter. You know, each person can build a relationship the way they would like. It can be good if we're intentional. But NTA Port Harcourt tell us more about landlord and tenant relationship. NTA Port Harcourt, it's your turn.
Abraham, come out. I want to see your bed. My money. I need my money.
But that's your rate. In fact, we don't contribute too much for this compound. Water, light, wahala. Every day we get problem. You every time they disturb me, your net. And then they pay small.
This your which money? I don't want it. I don't want it. Why will you be giving me 1 naira, 2 naira for what? Who does that? Do you know how much is the back of cement?
Every time one problem or the other, one problem.
Listen. If you are tired of my house, then pack and leave.
In Nigeria, the relationship between landlords and tenants is often a complex drama. Sometimes it's cordial and other times it's complicated. It's a relationship where mutual obligations often collide with the harsh realities of a challenging house market. One of the most prevalent issues affecting this relationship is the arbitrary rules by landlords and the threat to sudden eviction.
For a landlord to evict a tenant or quit a tenant, they are tied to so many factors. One, if he increases his rent and you're not prepared at the material time to pay, that could call for eviction. He might decide to use force. Some landlords are not ready to even maintain a roof. Tell them your roof is leaking, they say they will do it. Sometimes they use it as an avenue to put you so that as you move, they bring in another person and charge higher. Some persons prefer monthly, some quarterly, some biannually, some annually. So it depends on how you have agreed with him. But I think it is better off on negotiation than to say it cannot be like this. Once that it cannot comes into play, no landlord takes it at ease.
I'm one of those landlords that likes making sure that my tenants are always comfortable, especially both security otherwise. Like in my compound, by 10 p.m., the gate is shut. That is one of the laws that I keep in this compound for security reason. I make sure that the house is okay. As you enter, no leakage in the roof. Everywhere the place is painted. We have a written agreement that binds both you and me. That as I'm giving you this key, the way the house is, when you're leaving, you have to keep my house in order. I don't just stay and increase my rent. If I want to renovate, I increase my rent because, we all go to the same market. Key will buy 6,000. Now you go to the market, it's 15,000. And if I want to renovate, I cannot renovate with the old price. I have to make sure that whatever I'm doing, the money I'm getting is equivalent to do what I want to do. So I increase my rent.
In an economy where rent consumes much of people's income, tenants expect value, basic amenities, and comfort, while landlords want prompt payment and care for their properties. When either side falls short, tension rises.
Lawyers will advise our clients to have tenancy agreements executed. But again, like you have rightly said, there are situations where there are no such tenancy agreements in place. if I have many situations like that. In that case, the landlord and the tenant would have to resolve the matter amicably, either amongst themselves, and feeling that they may have to refer to people who are well-meaning. There must be somebody that the landlord may respect his opinion, or the tenant may respect his opinion. Either way, where there's such a stalemate, it should be referred to the multi-law courthouse or an ADR center, so that without going to court necessarily, the issues can be thrashed out between the landlord and the tenant. Feeling that, I'm afraid it must go to court.
Despite the prevailing challenges, it is important to acknowledge that there are still landlords who maintain property, respect their agreements, and treat tenants well.
I've had them like that, where if you complain, a landlord will say, no, don't bother, I'm taking care of this thing immediately. That ease is there. You find that place as if it is your own.
The good news is that the struggle for a better housing experience has now brought about emerging trends and helping schemes for home seekers.
There is a platform called Zamela.net. If you're a house seeker, for instance, you go to Zamela.net, you see houses listed there. You just read about it. It's not like Facebook feed. It's not like a difficult thing to interact with. So you read about it, the way you browse Facebook, the same way you browse the platform. So, but then instead of comment and like, you're going to see a chat icon. When you click on that chat icon, it takes you to the WhatsApp contact of whoever is going to help you complete the house deal. So, and the house number, everything is there. It's as simple as that.
When both parties understand that the ultimate goal is not just occupancy, but peaceful coexistence, the walls of misunderstanding begin to crumble, leaving room for trust, fairness, and more humanity in finding and keeping a home.
You go reduce rent for us.
That relationship can be very smooth and enjoyable. I'm talking landlord-tenant, and it can be very stormy and traumatic. So it depends on how we manage it and the knowledge we have. And that's why today on the show, it's all about landlords and tenants. Please, Yesvi, tell us more about agents and how it can be regulated, given that you're an estate surveyor and valuer.
Yeah, thank you. Over time, the activities of quacks in real estate transaction have been worrisome to the prospective tenant, to the landlord, and even to the Nigerian populace. And that was why the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and Valuers a few years ago bettered Association of Real Estate Agents.
Oh, there's an association.
Yes, and that was supposed to help bring up those quacks that want to aspire to become agents to training by bringing them to the fold so that they can be properly regulated. The practice of estate management in Nigeria is regulated by Nigerian Association of Estate Surveyors and Valuers and the Estate Surveyors and Valuers Registration Board of Nigeria. So these quacks, the Association of Real Estate was formed so that they can help and bring them into fold, give them training so that the issue of quackery will reduce. Okay. And again, the publics are advised to make use of registered real estate agents and estate surveyors and valuers so that they can avoid this issue.
So is that touch. So is that touch.
So how do you get to know who is registered?
Yes.
That's of course, yes. You have questions.
You need to do your due diligence.
To know.
We need to thank you at this time, ESV Obiajulu Anyoke. Thank you so much. An Honorable Barrister Ephraim Shiho. Before you go, you have one final sentence. It's round-up time. One sentence to end our conversation before we go to sports.
Tenants should be advised to cut their coat according to their materials, not according to
their size.
No, because if you have a 1 yard material, you can't sew a top, but you can sew a boxers and a vest. So cut your material according to your size. Now, if you cannot afford rent in a particular area, please vacate. Don't give yourself that stress. So tenants should be educated. They should be there should be a platform wherein tenants will be educated that you must cut your coat according to your size.
Thank you very much, Honorable. It's been great. You know, what he's saying in essence, let us say it in the way everybody can understand. The money in your account, plan with it. Don't plan for the one that is coming when looking for accommodation. So you'll be comfortable and everything will be seamless. But Godwin's been talking with Victor Modo today on Sports Summit. I get a feeling he will mention the hat trick Osimhen gave for Nigeria recently. This convo can't be complete without it. Godwin, take it away. We are at the peak of the program.
That's a great through ball. Victor Osimhen on his right foot. Gets the shot, he gets the goal, Nigeria! Chikwueze, he's a great delivery! Diamond from the right side. Watch out for Osimhen once again, it comes right across! Oh my! Will he take on his man? He's going to go down into the penalty box, gets the ball across. Oh, there's a whipping chance, the volley! They got the fourth goal!
Who says that God does not love Nigeria? I always say to a lot of persons, look, God plays football. And God did it for us on Tuesday. It was looking like we're out of it completely. We need just three games for us to be at the World Cup. This is what we're talking about on this edition of the show from the eyes of a sport journalist who was right there at the magnificent Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Oyo. My name is Godwin Enak, and I Sports Summit on Weekend Day.
What makes a true leader in the game? Is it being the first to start? For over a decade, one name has always led in front. That name is Bet Naija. Bet Builder, Bet Freeze, One Up, Bet Boom. Not just features, but unbeatable odds on over 300,000 live matches. You're playing to win. Just another reason why Bet Naija is truly Nigeria's #1.
Welcome back. I did say we're talking about the survival of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, and of course, from a journalist's perspective, a man who was right there. Victor Modo is our guest on the show this morning. Victor, thank you so much for joining us on Sports Summit on Weekend Deal.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, we are still celebrating here. I hope you guys are celebrating in the studio too.
Okay, celebration mood. Now, Victor, straight up, when you were going to Uyo, did it occur to you that Nigeria still stood a chance of making it through the playoffs to the World Cup?
I will not lie, right? We all talked a big game, quite frankly, going into the game, but nobody went to Uyo. I can tell you 100% that he knew the Super Eagles are going to score 4 goals against Benin, because in recent times, we sincerely have not done so much to inspire confidence. So I didn't particularly go to Benin dead sure that we are going to beat Benin Republic 4-0.
Indeed, a miracle happened on Tuesday in New York. Hey, we also have a miracle child. His name is Victor Osimhen. Victor Modo, what would Nigeria be, Super Eagles of Nigeria, without this young man?
I mean, Nigeria is blessed to have two of the current African best player and the immediate past one. I mean, it is like asking what can Portugal do without Ronaldo, or what can Argentina do without Messi. Osimhen is that big. Post 2019, the entire national team set up an attack systems gravitated towards Osimhen's style of play and the quick counter attack that Chukwueze also knows how to do. So it's tough for another striker to come in and give the same levels of operation, because we don't technically have a striker problem in Super Eagles. We have a service problem. That's service for the strikers. Aside from the first one, the other 2 chances are not technically called big chances in the game. You have to walk your way through to make those goals happen. So Osimhen is that important. What we will do with, I mean, in recent time, we have not been able to effectively win or win well without Victor Osimhen. So as much as I don't know what we'll do without him, I have an answer for that question. All I just want to say is let Eric Shell go and pray for Victor Osimhen in any way he knows how to pray, that he's available in November.
From a journalist's perspective, what must we do differently for us to go to the playoffs and make it work?
I mean, it's definitely a second chance at a bite at the cherry, definitely. And I mean, all of Nigeria is appreciative of this second opportunity. I mean, the mistakes that we had in the past in this World Cup qualifier,
I mean, it's something that haunts us. But left to me, I just term it last minute loss of concentration. Ultimately, our bad form against the lowest sides ended up giving us a chance, and they've had the playoffs. But again, luck cannot strike in the same place twice.
Build up, bet freeze, one up, bet boom. Bet Nigeria is truly number one.
Thank you so much, Victor Modo, a sport journalist. My name is Godwin Enagna. The God of second chance has given us that opportunity of going to the World Cup. We'll take every opportunity to make it. Keep praying for Nigeria. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, Godwin Enagna, for the Sports Summit. And of course, we'll continue to pray for Nigeria.
You didn't say thank you, Victor Osimhen. Huh?
Thelma Osimhen, and trust me, Osimhen delivered. When we needed him the most, he delivered.
Let's clap. You've not formally. Thank you.
And maybe as we wrap up the show, we ask the band. And by the way, I love the band.
Ooh.
Trust me. And I don't know the qualification, but maybe I will apply to join the band. But certainly they will give us something to celebrate the Super Eagles of Nigeria as we wrap up the show. But right now, let's quickly take the papers, and we start with this story in the spirit of sport. Under 17 Women World Cup, Flamingos face Canada in Sunday opener. Details of that on page 32 of Blueprint. And with the story just above that, above the masthead, defections, Tinubu not forcing governors, others to join APC, NNPP BOT chair. Insist they are doing so on personal convictions, choices. Details of that on page 10. Now to the leading story, why floods still wreak states. FCT, despite early warnings, citizens don't heed flood caution admonitions. Concerned agencies fail to enforce urban planning laws, says experts. Incidents reflect systemic negligence, poor control. Risk manager, 236 people so far killed, 409,714 affected in 117 local governments, says NEMA. Details of all this can be found on pages 8 and page 9. And that's much you can take from the Blueprint. Now to Saturday Telegraph. We head straight to the leading story. ASU sources, lecturers planning mass exit from higher institutions. Many teachers moving to UK, US, Canada, Saudi. Private schools say we are begging, struggling to survive. This is coming from the insider report of the ongoing ASU strike. Details of all this can be found on page 2. Editors shift annual conference to November 12 and 13 in Abuja. We'll tell you why as we read the other stories. Details of that can be found on page 30. That is much we can take from Saturday Telegraph. Now to Weekend Leadership Weekend. Guests attended naming of our twins for confirmation. Woman who gave birth after 40 years of marriage. Details of that
40
on
years.
page 33. And somebody will say, what God cannot do
does not exist.
Now, Boko Haram, ISIS kill more Muslims, says U.S. envoy. Now to the leading story. Deputies sidelined as governors plan 2027 succession. Analysts explain why governors don't want their deputies as successors. Details of that can be found on page 4. But I think if you have a deputy, that deputy must have seen how you run the government and all of that. I feel that person should actually be the perfect replacement for you. But the governors seem to have other, thoughts. Now to Weekend Trust. Kirawa, a Nigerian town shielded by Cameroonian soldiers. Details of that can be found on page 16. Tinubu's cab as new bride. Of course, a lot of people are making money from, making this cap now. And recently there was a controversy when the Edo State governor, told his cabinet that anytime they want to come for a meeting, they must make sure they wear the cap. And you know, the sign, sometimes some tell you that it's a sign of 8. Could it be 8 years? 8 years as governor, 8 years as president? Some people feel it's a broken chain.
Are you vying for a position?
No, some say it's a broken chain, and you know what that means. You know, you break chain, freedom, and all of that. You know, so many interpretations to that cap. But the truth is, a lot of people are buying into it. Now, questions over general elections in 2026. Details of that on page 4. Peace deal with bandits makes sense. Alhaji Lawal Bagua, gunmen kill 7 in Kaduna attack. Love gone sour. How 136 spouses were killed in 4 years. Domestic violence. Details of that on page 27. And trust me, this is topic that I would love that we revisit on Weekend Deal. Now, the nation, Uzodinma Tinubu's policies making Nigeria rich again. Fiscal reforms yielding results, says the APC Governors Forum. Details of that on page 7. Omotola, I shot my first film under pressure. What pressure? You may want to pick up a copy of The Nation to find out. Turn to page 14 for details of that story. Now, genocide, Boko Haram, ISIS killing more Muslims than Christians. Trump advisor says U.S. satisfied with Tinubu's handling of farmer-herder conflict. Pledges support. Details of that on page 4. Key ADC members to join APC soon. Yilwatda. Party strong enough to manage defectors' expectations, or to details of that on page 4. Now, that's much we can take from the papers. Thelma.
No, thank you, Sule. Let's quickly take some messages.
But before you take that message again, let us just give a special smile for Victor Osimhen. You know, we encourage him for the next one against Gabon. I'll be patient.
Osimhen, this is for you. Okay, someone says, when mentioning agents, why landlords keep increasing their rents, agent has nothing to do with the landlords and tenants rate. Chinon, so Jerry, maybe because agents also do things apart from rent, double crossing and all. Somebody says, I love the Navy band. I love the Navy band. Nice. Well done, Navy band. And that person said, my name is Sule Bello from Lagos. My landlord increased my rent from 750 to 800 while I was still for March. It will expire in March, and then he increased it to 1.5, which is no longer 850. How do you increase rent like that? Okay, he's asking questions. We'll get back to you. Good morning. I love the Navy band. I love Thelma and Patience. I love this show. So many messages. And so many messages. Thank you so much.
In the spirit of love for Navy band, I think it's only right that we move straight there so that they can wrap up the show for us. Okay. And remember, Navy band, it is the